Okay, so let's take a moment. Let's just close our eyes, do a little centering. So the class is about an hour and 15. We'll have time for questions and answers and that kind of thing. But just settle in for your practice of balancing. And however you're sitting, you may just notice, am I sitting upright? Am I balanced on the right side, the left side, or does one side feel heavier than the other? And I think all that comes with this awareness of yoga, right? So just to let you know some of the benefits that you'll be getting out of working in this balance class today is that one-legged balancing asanas offer so many benefits. So it helps with concentration. It's also very calming, or can be. These poses strengthen our muscles and build our coordination and balance. It improves the way we stand, the way we walk, as well as how we perform many everyday activities. And these benefits might actually prolong our lives, helping us to avoid falls and often leads to injuries. A strong sense of balance encourages stillness in the yoga poses, as well as stillness in our mind. Improving your balance is also helps strengthen your muscles and improve your flexibility and your muscles overall. And then off the mat, it improves balance, will encourage proper posture. Balanced postures challenge us to combine strength and relaxation, to balance the body and the mind. The difference between balancing pose and all other asanas is the amount of focus that's required. They demand our full concentration to balance our effort and awareness, drawing us into the present moment. They develop our core strength and tone our legs and arms. And they also improve our coordination, posture, and confidence. So you might even want to set an intention for your practice in balancing today. And I would encourage you to practice self-acceptance. That's part of the yoga practice anyway. To have compassion, no judgment, no harm. So I would encourage you, if you get a little frustrated during holding a pose on one leg or whatever, that you bring a sense of humor to it, a sense of lightness and acceptance. Okay, so when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, we're going to actually start with our feet. So if you want to just cross one leg, or if you're on the floor, you can play with this a little bit. I just want you to give yourself a little self-massage. So here is our base, our foundation in our balancing poses. You might even want to stretch those toes. Something that's very helpful is to put your fingers like through your toes and try to get them down to the base. Some of us have those yoga toes. I'm not wearing them as often, but once or twice a week, I try to put them in for a little bit to help with the foundation. I happen to have really wide feet, so that actually helps on my balancing. But if your muscles in your feet are all gripped and tight, that's not going to help with your balancing. And maybe even rotate that ankle a little bit for some circulation. And we'll do more when we come standing to warm up the feet and strengthen the feet as well. And for some of you, let me just say, if you have plantar fasciitis or you just know your balancing is better with shoes on, I would say put your shoes on for the whole class. Okay, let's go over to the other foot. Just that little bit, I can feel like some warmth and circulation in there. On this side, if you want to put the fingers through your toes, web them in or stretch them, pull them back and forth, a little rotation with the ankles. So thanks for joining me. I love doing, and also these classes are much smaller than some of the other classes that I teach, so we'll be able to get to questions and answers in that. And then you can release this side. Okay, so what I'd like you to do, I think we're going to start on the floor. So pad your knees if you need to, because I think we'll start low and then get up a little higher. So I was thinking balancing table pose, right? So we're a little closer to ground. Now, if you have some wrist stuff going on, I would invite you to go onto your forearms. But here, before you even do the balancing table, really think about your core. Like if you're just hanging in your table, or can you press down through your hands, up through your navel a little bit, and have a really flat back. That's table, not where you're swaying or rounding, okay? Knees are positioned right underneath your hips, just like they will be when you're standing for balancing. And then you might, we talked about the gaze. So I would just look straight down at your mat. You won't have to look at me, but take the right leg off the floor, back behind you. Okay, the foot can be flexed or point, but I prefer that your spine didn't change at all. So if you know you're kind of, I say collapsing in the shoulders, like my arms aren't strong, like I'm really pressing down through my hands, arms nice and straight and strong, and lifting up through my navel a little bit just so I don't sway. Okay, so have a steady gaze, back of the neck long. Then anyone that wants to take their left arm out in front or maybe off to the side. So how you position your hands and your head when we're standing especially, you'll see it can throw our balance off a little bit. So play with, if you're taking that left arm out, oh yeah, out to the side, I feel a little bit more, or it's easier, maybe straight out in front, a little bit more challenging. Now for any of these poses, as we go through our time together, just feel free to come out if you need to. Okay, we're going to come out of that. Let's just sit back either on the heels or you can stand on your knees. Let's shake out those wrists a little bit, even rotate them before we go on to the other side. So there are many arm balancing. We're not going to address those today. I don't really do them in our classes anyway, like handstands and some of the other poses. So then we'll come back down, take the left leg back. So establish your table and really see if you can work your abdominal muscles a little bit. And then once you establish that, see where the right arm wants to go. You could even just have it out to the side, but fingertips on the floor. Back of the neck long. You can reposition the arm. Once you get balanced, you can even keep the arm down. But I'd like you to really get a sense of how you're holding yourself here. A lot with balance can also be, I've done classes on the pelvic floor, and really, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, but the pelvic floor, lifting your pelvic floor, or some of you might know it as very similar to kegling. So if you do that, sometimes that can help with people's balance. Okay, let's bring that back down. Let's all go into child pose. So you may have not done any warm-ups yet this morning. So let's just go into child pose for a moment. And then we'll come forward and do a few cat and cow if you like. The exhalation, you round. The inhalation, you can tip the gaze and the hips up. Okay, maybe just 3 of those. Okay. When you finish with those, I'd like to go into a brief plank. So again, working the abdominal muscles a little bit because that's going to help when we stand as well. So let's start off this way. Let's take the right toes along the mat. And for some of you, that might be your plank, okay? Or you can come back to this. You might have to be on your forearms if it doesn't work on your wrist. Now, don't move your hips any more than where they are, but if you want to slide that left leg next to the right leg, here's your plank. And mostly what I want to be working here is your abdominal muscles. Of course, your arms and legs are working too, but really get a sense of your abs working, okay? Let's put one knee down, the other knee down. Let's sit back again and shake out the wrist. Okay, let's roll those shoulders up, back, and down a little bit. Maybe 3 times in each direction. Some of the stuff I'm going to do might seem really simple, but I'm hoping it will be powerful in the next days and weeks, maybe the rest of your life, how you stand, how you walk. And when you release that, let's come up to standing. Okay? So this is, I'm going to refer to Sarah Meeks. So I did, because I love all the benefits of yoga in itself. But this one is just simply have your feet underneath your hip bones, okay? And then what I'd like you to do is just take yourself off balance. You're going to come forward a little bit on your feet and then go back on your heels, just going back and forth. So she calls this body sway. And this helps to strengthen the legs and to evenly distribute the weight between your 2 legs. And then just go a little side to side. Take yourself off balance and then on balance. Again, have that chair around, have a wall around if you need to, because this is all part of balancing. Okay? And then come back to center and find where your center is. Okay? Now, some of us might have to take our feet just a little wider because that feels a little bit more secure. So I would say play with that, especially when we start to go into one leg off the floor. You might just find a little wider stance gives you a better foundation, okay? So here, basically mountain pose, we'll just keep our arms by our sides. My quads are lifted, or I say, you know, like you press them back into the thighs. So what's important in your balancing is your plumb line, okay? So the ankles, the hips, the shoulders, and the ears all in one alignment. Okay? So stand that way in just a moment, for a moment. And Theo, I think I like, somewhere she said it, that your plumb line has to drop beside, the plumb line has been dropped beside your body to stay in, I don't know what that means actually. So let me just say, she says, and this is before we get to walk. So that plumb line is that you just feel like from your, say the middle of your foot all the way up through your body and out through your crown of the head is one straight line. And then Sarah Meeks talks about like imagining yourself just feeling 2 inches taller than what you are. Just imagine. And that's not by lifting your chin up. So we'll make sure that the chin is parallel. The crown of the head is reaching up like someone has an anchor there or a string and trying to lift you up. And the other visualization she liked to give you is like your breastbones just lifting a little bit. So stay here a moment and just see how it feels. And sometimes I lift my toes up and then lower those down. So I'm right in, we talk about a lot in yoga, like the 4 points in your feet, which is underneath the big toe, the little toe mount, and 2 points in the heel. Okay. So see if you can get a sense. And sometimes it helps, like that sway, and it's like, yeah, I'm not in balance that, so I'll go back and then where is my balancing point? Okay, crown reaches up. So I'm hoping you have a little room around you. You're just going to step your right foot forward. Okay, keep that plumb line. And then your back toes, the heel will come off the ground. Then you're going to step back. Okay, I know this seems really simple, but it's really part of balance. Step the other foot forward. So walking in itself is a balancing point, and then come back to that. So alternate that, just go back and forth a couple more times, but really get a sense of your posture. Of course, always your breath. And she calls this dynamic weight shifting. So do a few more. And she says, this exercise benefits the legs that you are standing on because it teaches you to transfer your weight through the hip joint. As you move the opposite leg forward and backward in this way, you are exercising the muscles around the hips on that standing leg, strengthening them and allowing the weight of your body to go through the entire range of your hip. So if we don't do that, and then the next time you come back, we can just come back into mountain pose with our arms by our side. So it's important like how you walk. I mean, sometimes we walk really fast and we might be out of alignment, which can affect those hips over time, and then we get osteoporosis in the hips. So, or that can be one reason. It could be some other falls in that, okay? So now I'd like you to walk just in your space. Maybe it's just 2 or 3 steps, but I want you to notice if the breastbone could lift a little bit, if the crown of the head stays up. Now, I know some people say they have to look down when they walk because they don't feel secure or whatever, but you can still keep your chin parallel and still be able to look down. So the eyes can be down. So just walk around a little bit more thinking about, how am I walking? Does my head come forward or my shoulders come forward? I'd rather they not, okay? And notice, and go slow, just notice like one foot is off the floor. There's my balancing on that leg, how that weight transfers into my hip. Okay. Great. And then you can come back to your spot. Now, Sarah Meeks also says about, so I would have a chair around, I have a wall around and a chair around. But let's just test something out here. So find your mountain pose, which is basically what you were in, right? You may not want to look at me because we need a focus point, a drishti, which is really important in your balancing poses. So some people find that maybe looking like, you know, I just want to make sure no one's in the waiting room. Yeah. Like some people find like just looking a foot out in front works, or 5 feet out in front works better for their focus point. Don't let the head drop down. Let the eyes go down if you want to, or if you happen to have a wall right out in front there, use that. So again, you could also hold on to the wall, because I'm going to ask you, even if you hold on to the chair or the wall, I want you to think about really feeling rooted, the plumb line, and then take 1 foot off the floor. It doesn't matter. And just notice, if that foot is really wobbly, the standing leg, then it just behooves you to hold on to a wall or to a chair to steady that leg, okay? And bring that down, okay? Let's go on to the other side. But I want you to count to yourself 1 elephant, 2 elephant, or whatever you want to use. But second-wise, on this other side, how many seconds can you stay without touching the wall? And maybe you just have to put your finger on there lightly. Nice steady drishti. Maybe lift the pelvic floor. I know I didn't give you a lot, but just think about engaging your abs here a little bit. and then you can release. That was probably about 20 seconds. B, if you were able to hold it for 20 seconds or not. This is one of the tests Sarah Meek says, like if you can't hold for 20 seconds on one leg, then you probably have a balancing problem. And some of you might say, well, in one pose I can, in some other poses, because it changes the weight, and my balance is a little off. And that's understandable, okay? But that's just like a little guideline that you can use with your balancing. And I would say the more you can do it, like when you're waiting for your tea, waiting for coffee, or even talking on the phone, but I don't want you to hang into the hip. You need to really think about crown of the head up and the breastbone just lifting a little bit, okay, that plumb line. Let me just speak briefly, because it's a whole class in itself, about the pelvic floor. And there's 3 layers of this pelvic floor, and those of you who have had children, a lot of times it's a little weaker. So I know what I'm looking for because I've been doing it enough where I engage the pelvic floor and you help strengthen those muscles, these 3 layers that your organs rest on. So if you think about, those of you who know Mula Bandha, it's a root lock in our yoga tradition. It's that. And then if you don't know that so much, but you get the sense of kegling, I would say that's similar, not quite the same, but you'll get those muscles to engage. So I find if I engage those muscles when I prepare for balancing poses, it does help me. Okay? So let's do something quite simple. And again, have a wall or a chair, and one hand could always be on the wall. So we're going to go back to feet here to help strengthen the feet and our legs. So we're simply going to take the arms out in front and come off the heels. Now, if you're using the wall, you can just have the hand or one hand on the wall. Exhale, will go down. Okay, let's do that 3 more times. Now you can come up onto the ball of the foot a little bit more, and then exhale, have control coming down. And then get the sense of your plumb line, ears, shoulders, hips. I know I speak about that a lot in our yoga practice. And if you want to use one arm or both arms, you can even pause up at the top, strengthen those ankles, and come down. Okay, so that's one piece. The next piece, see how comfortable you are doing this. We're going to inhale the arms up, come off the heels, but do a little side bend to one side. And then inhale, center. I'm off my heels a little bit or a lot. And then I go over to the other side. Okay. Next time we come back to center, we can bring the heels down and the arms down. Okay. Just to play with it. Now, this next one, I'm going to take my feet a little wider than hip bones because it feels easier for me. We're going to do a twist. So we're going to come off our heels, take the arms out to the side. So usually having the arms out to the side helps with balance. We're going to twist a little bit to the right or whatever side, it doesn't matter. I'm off my heels. I come back to center and twist to the other side. Now I can keep my gaze forward at the same steady gaze, or I can move it with the arms. We're going to bring that down. We'll try that one more time. Okay, strengthens the ankles, strengthens the legs. Inhale, take the arms out to the side. My heels are off the ground. Maybe come up a little higher if you want. Maybe follow that back arm. Come back through center. Now this is moving with being in balance. So it is a little bit more challenge. And then come back and release the arms down. Okay, see how that feels. Okay. Let's try one more balancing poses, and then what I might do is we might just, I'll unmute you just in case you have any questions what we've done so far, okay? So I'm gonna back up to the wall because I happen to have it. I'm gonna come back into mountain pose. My feet are a little wider maybe typically than I do mountain, but I just find that easier when I start to shift the weight onto the left leg and bring that right knee in towards my chest, and I can use my hands to hold it. Now I got the wall behind me, so I'm making sure my head, shoulders, and hips are on the wall, but I could always bring my weight away from the wall and still know that it's there. I know for some people it's more of a confidence thing, so just having a wall or chair there can help support that confidence. Okay, let's release that, and let's go to the other side. Remember that dristi, because that's important. And then if you do have some sinus congestion stuff going on, just know that might be contributing to maybe being off just a little bit. Now I really want to make sure this standing leg is really firm. And release. Okay, so let me just see, let me know, I'm going to unmute, and just let me know if you have any quick questions or whatever I could address now with what we did so far. And just say your name first, because I can't see you. So any questions?
This is Beth.
Huh?
The author's name, how do you spell it?
Meeks.
What I guess.
Yeah, Meeks, Sarah. Yeah, and I refer this book with osteoporosis, but also she has a really good foundation for balance. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Ready for more balancing poses? Okay, so I'm going to mute you just so I think. Anybody else? Lynn, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll mute everybody. Just checking in, so let's do that. Just because if there's other sounds in your house or something, sometimes that can be distracted. And with balancing poses, I don't need anything more to distract me. Now, some of our balancing poses are more challenging, and we probably won't, well, maybe we'll do it today, but some are where you turn your head, and I would just in class or whenever you do like, say balancing half moon, but I'm looking down and then I'm going to start changing my gaze. Really go slow with that, because that's just shifting again between your ears. It helps with your balance just to go slower. So even if we're in tree pose and then we want to turn the gaze somewhere else, just know that you want to go slow with that. We can practice that a little bit towards the end of class. Let me say this. Why don't you pick your next balancing pose, the one that is your favorite? And well, maybe not even your favorite, but you know, it's where you feel steadiest. Could be, you know, tree pose, could be eagle pose, dancer pose, or just a simple knee in towards the chest. So if you don't have a favorite, but if there is one that doesn't challenge you like some of the other ones, let's go into that just for about 30 seconds, okay? And I don't have a minute clock, but my 30 seconds in my head. So before you go in, let me just say, where's that plumb line? Do you have support around if you need support? Maybe the pelvic floor, and this is a lot of information, so maybe you just use pieces of this. But your dristi, your focus point has to be, it's absolute, okay? So go on to one side, doesn't matter what side. Okay, and release, and if you need to shake it out a little bit, you can shake it out. So, and I would encourage you to start each time in a balancing pose, even if it's a really good day for balance, but how is my posture? Because when I shift that weight onto that standing leg, I don't want it to be in the hip. That's going to affect the hip over a long time or over a long run. So I really want to make sure I have that plumb line, the pelvic floor, the dristi. At least have those. Just a few more seconds. And then you can release. Okay. So while we're here, let's just stand in our mountain pose. So I want to read, at a higher level of the nervous system, your attitude towards practicing balancing poses have a tremendous effect over your success. So sometimes we might have a fear of falling, or we said, I've never been good at balancing poses. I would say, can we shift that, make it more positive? It's like, I'm getting better at balancing, or I'll take support. So it's important to practice balancing poses seriously because we're standing on one leg. But I'd also like you to bring a sense of humor, patience with it, maybe even curiosity. It's like, oh, wow, today, yeah, that ankle's moving this way, or I feel like I am hanging in my hip. So look at it maybe differently than I've never been good at it, or here I go again, or there's fear around it. Laugh if you start to wobble or whatever. Now, in one article that I was reading, they were saying before you start your balancing poses, so let's say now, because some of you might have already been in that pose, but let's do the flamingo pose. So that's where, let's say we take the left foot onto the right and the knee sticks out. So have a wall if you need to. What this one article was saying is, like, when you start your balancing poses, you might start with both knees bent. And then again, do you want to take your stance a little wider? I can't really tell you because it's so individual. It's also how wide our pelvis is in that. But let's just try, start with bent knees, and then we're going to shift. So the weight's going to come all on the right leg, and I'm going to place that left foot right on my shin. So hold on if you need to, use a chair. You can even bring the toes down if you need to. But unlike tree pose, the knees out, not out to the side, it's going straight forward. And then let's just see about if I change my arms, and don't look at me because I'm wobbling, so find your dristi. If I change my arms and they're out to side, do I feel like I have a little bit more steadiness or not? Those of you who are pretty good, with your balance right now on this side, you might want to take your arms straight up because that changes things. Don't hang in that hip though. Keep pressing down through the standing leg, up through the crown of the head, lift the pelvic floor, and release. Okay? And just see how that feels. So I don't know, I've just been playing with like starting off with bent knees and then going into my balancing. So it's just another tool you can practice or see if it works for you. Okay, so let's do the flamingo on the other side. I have to say, even if I have one finger on the chair or the wall, it's amazing how it steadies that bottom leg. So let's go to the other side with the dristi, with lifting the pelvic floor, with the plumb line. And then even if you start off holding on to something for a little bit, that's fine. It's still weight bearing. Sometimes I just go down to one finger and it steadies that ankle. So I just want you to notice what the ankle and the standing leg is doing. And anyone, just play. Maybe just one arm goes out to the side. I'm not changing my focus point. Lift the pelvic floor. So when I lift my pelvic floor, I automatically feel my abdominal muscles engaging because I know what I'm looking for. So if it's kind of new to you, just think lift the pelvic floor. If you're wobbly, it's better to go back to like the first stages of the pose or holding on. Okay, let's come out of that and release that. So I think I will do this one. So, because it's more challenging, if you're up for the challenge, I love using the wall. You can have blocks out in front. The other thing is I'm going to use the wall and the chair. So this is, and I'm just, because I know all of you that are on the, that came to the class, so I know you're capable of doing this. But with a little extra support, maybe it might make it a little easier. So balancing half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. So I happen to have a wall, so I can keep my plumb line right, let's say left toes to the left, doesn't matter what side. But I'm going to start shifting down. I got a wall behind me, so I know my alignment's going to stay good. I could micro bend that bottom knee. I have a chair, or maybe I go down to blocks. Okay, so I would keep the gaze here. This is what I was talking about before, that if you start to change up your gaze, don't be in a hurry to take it from like the floor to up towards the ceiling. So practice that, just see. Use a wall if you happen to have a wall, definitely use a chair if you have a chair. It gives me proper alignment of the pose. And then I can always back off of the wall or even lift my arm off the chair. Okay, so this is more of an advanced balancing pose. Let's all come out. If I have a wall, I can use a wall. Or use the wall to put my weight into it. Okay, let's switch sides. So some of you might have other ways that you come into balancing half moon. Go for it. Okay, so we'll shift the toes if you're going to your right side now. And then I would say sometime, like maybe where you're doing your practice right now, you don't have a wall, but try it if you have a space in your place where you can use the wall and come down. It just definitely makes it so much more secure. And I think it really keeps people's alignments, the hip stack, the shoulder stack. You can even take that top arm up if you want. Steady. You can micro bend the bottom knee, which is sometimes if your hamstrings are tight, you have to do that. Okay, nice and slow, come on up. If you have a wall or a chair and want to sit in a chair, we're just going to do a forward bend, or you are. With the vertigo, I'm not doing too many forward bends, but just as a little counter pose, you can come forward. Okay, if you're still forward, let's come on up to standing. Okay. So we went over a lot. Come back into mountain pose, Tadasana. Get that sense of plumb line. And I know I'm repeating some of this, but I hope then it just becomes habit or helpful to you. So I'm going to go back and forth to that swaying, take myself off balance, then maybe go back into balance. Then I lift up my toes, I'm back into my heels. Maybe I even go a little side to side. And then once I come back into my center, let's find the center. Okay. Arms by your side. Let's bring the hands onto the lower part of the belly and just relax your belly for a moment. So when you were in balancing table, I had asked you to bring your belly in just a little bit. So it's not like I'm squeezing it or pushing it. It's just a light, like lifting or taking the belly back, the navel back towards the spine. Okay? And then engage those legs, because you're doing that with your balancing poses. In your plank pose, you keep your legs really strong. The sternum lifts just a little bit and the crown of the head extends up towards your ceiling. And then we're going to take the arms out in front. Just go slow, take a couple breaths. Just notice if, coming into Tadasana, if your weight shifts at all, or if you have to take your arms wider. Okay, let's stay here for a moment. And then lift up your toes again. And then spread them wide. And see if you can lower just the little toe down. Then the next toe. And don't look down, you can feel if you feel it. And then the third toe. Oh, hopefully 2 more are still up. Then the 4th toe. Then the 5th toe. So we're really working those feet. Let's release the arms on the exhale. And then just notice, staying here, close the eyes for a moment. Notice if one side feels a little heavier than the other side, and sometimes that happens for those of us that sometimes one leg's a little longer than the other. So kind of just rearrange, maybe even lift up out of your hips a little bit, and then notice your legs and just notice if you feel heavier on one side, longer on one side, or if you feel pretty balanced here. And then we're going to come, you can open your eyes, find your drishti, so a steady gaze. And if you've been looking out like 6 feet out in front of you, then if that's working, use that. But if you want to bring that gaze in a little bit, you can try that. We're going to come off the heels like we did in the beginning of our standing poses. So I could be off just 1/4 of an inch, or I could come up a little higher, working the legs, the ankles a little bit more. Maybe I take the arms out to the side. Does that give me stability? There's many times, and what I would encourage you throughout the day is once or twice, waiting for coffee, tea. I just try to incorporate in your day, can I stand on one leg for 20 seconds without moving, without wobbling, let's say, and then let's release. Okay. So we're going to go back to that. So here, just to review, here's my plumb line. I'm nice and long, probably even got a little longer here in class, or a little taller just by standing up taller. I'm going to shift the weight onto the left leg and lift that right foot off the floor. So have a chair, have a wall if you want to. Okay, I'm not hanging in the hip. I got my drishti, maybe lifting the pelvic floor. And then if you want to rotate that ankle, you can. Some of you might want to take one arm or both arms out to the side. So now we're getting a little extra piece of the brain in here because I'm balancing, then I'm rotating the ankle. Those of you, this is really easy. You can take the arms up overhead or see what the next stage is for you. Okay, and bring that down, bring the arms down. Sometimes you might really feel the muscles of the legs working there. Okay, ready? Let's go Tadasana. And then we're going to shift the weight into that entire right side, and then bring the left foot off the floor. It doesn't even have to be that high. Arms, any variation. Maybe you want to change something up here. Maybe you want to use the chair or the wall at first to make sure that bottom ankle is not wobbling. Okay. Then if you want to start rotating the ankle on the left foot or whatever foot's up. Changing up the arms, but that will change or can change the weight in that standing leg. Don't let your head fold forward. Your head's like what, 13, 15 pounds, something like that. So if that's coming forward, you're shifting your weight. And then let's bring that down. Okay. Let's separate the feet a little wider. Let's just do a few side bends, relax the legs a little bit. We'll just go back and forth, change it up a little bit. And I didn't really address the breath yet, but it really doesn't serve you to hold the breath in a balancing pose. It's not going to help anything. So we just want to make sure our breaths are nice and peaceful. Okay. When I come back to center, I'm just going to roll the hips around because we've been standing on those legs, and then again, shifting the weight from one side to the other side. I just would like you not to get in a bad habit of where I call it hanging in the hip, and reverse the circles. And I'll exaggerate that in just a moment. And I would say if you have a full length mirror, try doing some poses in front of the mirror. In the Bikram classes, some of you might have been to, it's all mirrors around you. And then come back to center, walk the feet in. Sometimes it seems like it could be distracting, but it actually gives you, you can look at yourself and say, oh, that's what she means, pressing out through the hip. I'm really exaggerating. I've never seen anybody do it that much. But even little by little, if I could just keep it nice and long, because you don't need to put more wear and tear on that hip by hanging into it. Okay? So let's come down onto the floor. I'd like to do another balancing, so feel free to have a blanket for your knees if you need to. I like to do another balancing table, and maybe with all the information that you got about the core, lifting the pelvic, and I can answer some questions. Maybe I can be a little clearer on those. Find your drishti, so that's probably down on your mat, hands underneath your shoulders. Those of you, it feels better to go onto your elbows, you can certainly do that. But first, here's my table. It's not a balancing pose just yet. We're going to take the right leg off the floor, back behind you. Now I want that leg relatively firm and straight, so I typically press out through the heel. I want to just notice that my shoulders falling down through my hands. I want to press into my hands, and I want to lift the navel in towards the spine. Then, if you so like, you can take the left arm out to the side or out in front, which is a little bit more challenging. I'm going to have you hold for about 30 seconds here. See if you can use all those focus points you did when you were standing. The leg is firm, the back leg that's off the ground, navel moving in towards the spine. You have your drishti. And at any time, and I should have said this in the front, but if you're working with vertigo like me and feel a little dizzy, that's why it's really important to have support around. Okay? Now, release that. I'll add to that in just a moment. And then take the left leg back, but establish your table. No, and you know, if you're swaying your back or if you're rounding here a little bit, I'd rather you not. Envision like I'm going to come around and put a cup on your back, a cup of water on your back. So the flatter it is, it's going to stay steady. Then if you want to take that right arm out to the side, you can do that as well. Okay. Keep holding. Use those abs. Okay, and then release. Okay, so we're going to go back into balancing table, but I'm going to add a little bit more, but you don't need to. I'm going to bring the elbow towards the knee. And my gaze might change here a little bit as I extend the arm and the back leg, and then elbow to knee. And when your drishti moves, just know there might be a shift in the weight there. So you can keep the same drishti or bring your gaze towards the knee. One more time on this side. Just see if it's a little different moving in the pose. And then why don't we rest in child pose or go back in child pose, maybe shake out the wrist a little bit if you want. And I didn't really address, and we didn't do it standing, but sometimes a lot of time in class, we might do a tree pose and then add warrior 3 or another balancing pose. And that's where the dristi then changes your focus point. So it takes even a little bit more concentration. So we don't go to that level until we feel balanced, like in one pose. And then you can start to practice adding another balancing pose. Okay, let's come balancing table on the other side. Take the left leg back. Okay, right arm out. And then I'm going to bring elbow to knee. Now I can still keep the same dristi here if I want. If I feel steady, I might bring my gaze towards my knee and really shoot the arm and leg out. Good, last one. And child, if you feel like doing upside down pose, downward dog, feel free to do that. Okay, well, let's come on all fours again. And I'd like to invite you to do another plank. So you could, and trust me, your plank could be just one leg off the ground and then you switch it after a while, because I'm still working my abs here. Maybe it's easier on my wrist or I go on my forearms, okay? So your plank, okay, really working your abs. I'm gonna make it a little bit of a balancing pose if you so desire. And you can still get the same workout, similar, very similar, with your knees down, but I'm really working my abs. Anybody want to lift the right foot off the floor just an inch? I don't want your hips to move. Okay, bring those toes down. And then the other, hopefully you're still working your abs, your dristi, your focus point is the same. Then we bring that down, knees down, child pose, maybe with your arms to the side, so you can rotate your wrist a little bit. Okay. And then, you know, I think this is just a last minute thought, but I think what I'd like to do, and it's entirely up to you, but if you want to turn your videos on, not your sound, and go into any pose, standing pose, balancing pose you want to, and then I'll just look, because I think I might be able to give some insight, like if you're hanging into the foot a little bit, into the hip or whatever. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, just go into a pose. You don't have to turn your video.